Hello and welcome to Langthoughts episode 3. This video will be discussing historical linguistics, specifically looking at the origin of the study of historical linguistics through the language family of Indo-European. Now, there are many language families in the world, and there are some languages that are actually not part of a language family, but are instead called isolates, such as Basque, which is spoken at the border between France and Spain. However, many languages of the world can be reconstructed to go back to a few dozen proto-languages that were the original source of these languages. Now, there are some linguists called the mass comparators who try to link these languages together. However, some consider this to be pseudoscience and not real linguistics. So I'm going to leave that aside for a later episode. But there is a very important fact that the languages that are most spoken in the world, and almost all the languages that are on the UN list of the official languages of the UN, except for Chinese and Arabic, are part of a family called Indo-European and descend from Proto-Indo-European. Now, a little bit of history. Throughout the history of European thought, there had been people who noticed similarities between the vocabulary and grammar of various European languages. But it was not really set, the idea of Indo-European and Proto-Indo-European was not set into motion until in 1748, on the 2nd of February, Sir William Jones, a British I want to say politician, but he served a government functionary in India when it was under the British Empire, gave a speech to the Royal Asiatic Society in Calcutta, in which he said that he had noticed that Sanskrit had similarities to Greek and Latin. And he said the following, and I'm quoting here: "The Sanskrit language, whatever be its antiquity, is of a wonderful structure, more perfect than the Greek, more copious than the Latin, and more exquisitely refined than either, yet bearing to both of them a stronger affinity, both in the roots of verbs and in the forms of grammar, than could have been produced by accident. So strong, indeed, that no philologer," that was an old term for linguist, "could examine them all three without believing them to have sprung from some common source, which perhaps no longer exists. There is a similar reason, though not quite so forcible, for supposing that both the Gothic and the Celtic, though blended with a very different idiom, had the same origin with the Sanskrit, and the Old Persian might be added to the same family, if this were the place for discussing any question concerning the antiquities of Persia." Now, Sir William Jones did not set out to reconstruct what this proto-language was, but this was taken up in the 1800s by the German linguist, or philologist as he would have been known then, Franz Bopp, and around the same time by the Danish Rasmus Rask, who began to reconstruct Indo-European, Proto-Indo-European, and what it looked like. Though it has gone very, go through that in the almost 200 years since then, it has gone through very many stages of refinement. I first want to talk about the branches of Indo-European. There are 12 branches, though some will insist on 10 because they say there are 12 branches, but some will insist on 10 because some say that two pairs of two branches are really their own branches, and when we call these branches, we're really talking about sub-branches. Now, all linguists agree that these had an original common source between their proto-stage, the common ancestor of that branch of language, and Proto-Indo-European, or more accurately, between Proto-Indo-European and the proto-stage of the languages. But they still refer to them as the 12 branches of Indo-European. Now, there's a myth that's still popular, that Proto-Indo-European was in fact Sanskrit. However, this is not true, and actually we know that Sanskrit is not even Proto-Indic, Proto-Indo-Aryan, because of evidence in a lot of the surviving Indo-Aryan languages, the languages of North India, that show that it they did not descend from Sanskrit. However, a lot of people will say Sanskrit is Proto-Indo-European. This might come off as a bit prejudiced or calling a certain nationality dumb, but a lot of people from the Indian subcontinent will say this, who are educated but are not linguistically educated. Also, some people who study specific branches of Indo-European believe this. I have seen in Russian for Dummies the claim that English and Russian come from the same source, Sanskrit, but that's not true. They come from the same source, Proto-Indo-European. I do not blame the Indians who feel this way, because I assume that it is based on nationalistic feeling, and nationalistic feeling can be really powerful. If you've seen my video, that one political video that I posted, you'll understand what I'm talking about. And I cannot really blame, as long as they're not hurting anybody by it. I have no problem with Indians, or have any racial bias or think that they're stupid. I just wanted to get that out of the way. So Indo-European, as I said, has 12 branches. And I'm going to talk about them from west to east. From west to east. Starting with the Celtic languages. The Celtic languages, excuse me, the Celtic languages are today mostly minority languages, spoken in the British Isles. Though one of them, Irish, has official recognition in Ireland. Irish Gaelic is the more proper term. They consist of the Gaelics, Irish, Scottish, and Manx, Breton, Welsh, and Cornish, which was extinct, but I believe is undergoing a revival. But around the time of the Romans, the time of the early Roman Empire, Celtic was around all of a lot of Europe and even into Asia. For example, we find Gallic, the Latin of France before the Roman invasion, was a Celtic language called Gaulish. There's also Celto-Iberian, which was spoken in Spanish before the Roman invasion. And there was even a group in Turkey, in what's now Turkey, called the Galicians. And if you are a Christian or have studied the Bible, whether for polemic or religion or theological or for literature or cultural reasons, if you study the Christian Bible, you will know there's a book in what the Christians call the New Testament that is named after the Galicians. They originally spoke Celtic language. The next, going east, is the Germanic languages. These include such languages as English, though English is atypical because of the Norman invasion, which imported a lot from another branch. Italic, which we'll get to later. Swedish, German, Dutch, Icelandic. Actually, all of the Scandinavian languages except for Finnish. Afrikaans, Yiddish, among others. There are some other minority ones like Pennsylvania Dutch, which is actually more Pennsylvania German, but that's not what this video is discussing. Then there's the Italic languages. The Italic languages are basically survive today only in the sub-branch of Romance, which is descended from Vulgar Latin. However, we have evidence of classical Latin, for example, Virgil, as that was the original pronunciation of Virgil, Virgil's Aeneid, and also Cato and other Roman authors. And Classical Latin is an official language of Vatican City to this day, but we also see that in Italy, before the Romans dominated the south of Europe and the Mediterranean world in general, there were some also languages related to Latin, such as Oscan and Umbrian, and these together with Latin and its daughter, and Vulgar Latin's daughter languages, Romance, these are called the Italic languages. Some have proposed a link between the Italic languages and the Celtic languages because because the Celtic language is spoken on the European continent, off of the extinct languages that were spoken on the European continent, not in the British Isles, were very close to and possibly mutually comprehensible with some of the older Italic languages, like Latin, maybe Latin pre-Writing, maybe Oscan, maybe Umbrian. But that is not a topic that I am going to discuss. The next branch is Hellenic, which consists only of Greek. Though in ancient times there were many Greek so-called dialects, and I say that in scare quotes because they were really separate languages. However, modern Greek, except for some things that are really separate languages, such as Ciconian, spoken around the ruins of Sparta, the Greek language became unified. That could be a topic for a different video. The next branch is Albanian, which also only includes one language, which obviously from the name is Albanian. Some have linked this to fragments of languages that we know are Indo-European, but we don't have ancient languages that we know are Indo-European, but we don't have evidence for what exactly they look like grammatically and phonetically, but such as Thracian or Phrygian. The next branch is Slavic. Slavic includes such languages as Russian, Ukrainian, Polish, Bulgarian, Serbian, basically all of the languages of the former Yugoslavia, Czech, Slovak, etc. This is sometimes considered to be a sub-branch of the Balto-Slavic branch, which the other member of which is Baltic. Baltic consists only of two languages today, Lithuanian and Latvian. But there are some languages such as Old Prussian, that are extinct, but which were Baltic. Note that Estonian is not a Baltic language. It is not even Indo-European. It is a separate family called Uralic that is very closely related to Finnish and distantly to Hungarian, which is and those three are basically the three national languages. Well, I mean, if you count Georgia and Turkey as Europe, but as being part of Europe, but those are basically the three languages that are not Indo-European, that are national languages in what most people would consider Europe. The next branch is Anatolian. Anatolian is extinct and was spoken in what is today Turkey. It contains such languages such as Hittite, Lydian, and Ludwian. These languages actually confirms the Glottalic theory of Proto-Indo-European phonology, which I will get to next episode, which will be about what sounds Proto-Indo-European had and how we can divide the entire family into a three-way distinction between Kentim, Satem, and Anatolian based on this. But when we discuss that, you will see that the discovery of Anatolian in the early 1900s proved the Glottalic theory of Indo-European. The next branch is Armenian, which also contains only one language. Armenian. Continue our eastward march. There is Iranian, which not only consists of Farsi, which, yes, is not related to Arabic, which is a Semitic language. Iranians are not Arabs. But also languages such as Kurdish, and some languages, and Pashto, which is spoken in Afghanistan, and some minority language of Western Pakistan. Now, the Iranian languages formed together, much like Baltic and Slavic. They come together to form a super branch called Indo-Iranian. The other member being Indo-Aryan, also known as, sometimes called Indic, because of people not wanting to use the word Aryan because of the connotations associated with Nazism. In fact, an early name for all Indo-European languages was the Aryan languages. But of course this has disappeared. This disappeared. The Indo-Aryan languages consist of Sanskrit and most of the languages of East Pakistan, Northern India, Bangladesh, Nepal, and Sri Lanka, such as Urdu, Hindi, though some consider them to be a single language. In the spoken variety called Hindustani, Bengali, Mathali, Oriya, Sinhalese, and Nepali. And Sanskrit was a member of them, but it is not Proto-Indo-Aryan. The final branch is Tocharian, which is currently extinct, like Anatolian, and it was spoken in what is now Chinese Turkestan, near the Chinese Kazakh Mongol border, near occupied Tibet. And in fact, we know the speakers of the language had borrowed Tibetan Buddhism from the writings that survive. Tocharian consisted only of two languages that we have discovered: Tocharian A and Tocharian B. We don't know what they called themselves. Now, I noted before that some linguists like to compare Italic and Celtic. There are some who basically say that Greek, Armenian, and Indo-Aryan, and possibly Albanian were all one group. The Greek is divergent, as we will see in the next episode, being Kentom instead of Satem. I also had noted. I had also noted earlier that there have been previous names for Indo-European, such as Aryan, the Aryan languages, but there were other names such as Japhetic, named after Japheth, who, according to the three Abrahamic religions, was the son of Noah, who was the common ancestor to the speakers of the Indo-European languages. And also, especially among Germans, Indo-Germanic. But this is falling out of favor because it is unfair to label all the European languages that are Indo-European that are not Germanic as Germanic, because as we will see in next episode, Germanic is quite divergent. Now, I'm running out of time, and I wish to discuss about how we can reconstruct Proto-Indo-European, including an introduction to the reconstructive method, what sounds there were, and the three-way division of Kentim, Satem, and Anatolian that we discussed before. But I'm running out of time. This video is at almost 27 minutes. So that will be next episode. Thank you, goodbye, have a nice day, and thanks for watching.